Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. I just wanted to make a couple of comments on some issues that I think are really important. Obviously, a lot of you are going to be aware that the stop and frisk policy in New York, being that it is completely egregious racial profiling on the part of the cops, attempting to morph Terry stops into the ability to stop and frisk anybody on the street anytime for no reason at all. Supposed reasonable suspicion is garbage in this case, and I've been talking about this for some time, and I think it's a really great thing that a federal appeals court has now ruled that the stop and frisk policy of New York is unconstitutional, which I think is absolutely fucking fantastic. And of course, Mayor Hitler Bloomberg has decided that he's going to challenge that, and of course, Ray Kelly, the police chief up there, being considered for Homeland Security Director, is a very ominous thing indeed. And of course, he's all for it, saying that it's reduced crime. There's no correlation, in my view, between a reduction in crime and stop and frisk policy. The only thing that stop and frisk does is make blacks and Latinos feel uncomfortable going outside of their homes. And in fact, I think it was Ray Kelly himself who said that the end result of this is to make black people and Hispanic people afraid to leave their fucking houses. That's the goal. Not to keep the city safe, but to keep people terrorized and to keep them on their toes at all times for fear that they're going to be stopped and frisked for no fucking reason by a policeman. So I say congratulations for the victory, and hopefully it will continue to stand, and this egregious, totally over-the-top policy that is going on in New York will be put a stop to. And in the various other cities around the country, I hope that the same thing happens for other cities that are attempting to adopt the New York model. So congratulations. Stop and frisk ruled to be unconstitutional, as rightly it should have been. Now, there's also now increased fucking tension and misery going on in Egypt. And this is a clash between the Muslim Brotherhood, which, of course, as many of you will know, was created by the British early in the 20th century as a way to do their shenanigans in the Middle East. And, of course, they're connected to various groups that are engaged in violent protests in Egypt right now in an attempt to keep Mohamed Morsi in power, the supposed guy that the U.S. wanted. And, of course, now that the country is descending into chaos and more violence and bloodshed over there, of course, USA Incorporated has decided that they're going to continue their hands-off policy there rather than coming to the defense of people who want to have a strong, independent country of Egypt, because the overall goal of foreign policy of United States Incorporated is that every country should be in turmoil and eventually split up into balkanized states of tribalism. None of which will have any ability or power to negotiate in the global scene and can be easily dominated and manipulated to engage in terrorist actions and wars with other similarly balkanized countries, so that it will keep our military-industrial complex gears running within United States Incorporated. And of course, Obama recently talking about jobs and other things that he has completely and utterly failed to perform on. We have economic data coming out that indicates that the Fed can slowly taper off the bond buying of $85 billion a month that they've been engaged in. And of course, this is going to have an effect on the stock market, because the only thing propping up the stock market right now is the fact that billions and hundreds of billions of fucking dollars are being poured into that fucking rat's nest and shithole up in New York. Now, that brings me back to New York, where we have an election that is going on for the mayor of New York. Now, thankfully, Anthony, I will post my dick pic anywhere wiener, is falling in the polls. But what I am completely mystified and dumbfounded by is the fact that even though there is a large grassroots movement for Randy Credico in New York, who has an actual program and plan to bring some justice to the city economically, which is something that no one ever wants to fucking talk about, because that's the giant elephant in the fucking room. The income inequality in this country, and the fact that the poor are growing in number and getting poorer as the days go by, while the rich motherfucking fat cat cocksuckers on Wall Street continue to play their gambling casino games with every bit of money that they can get their hands on. And the reality is that that's going to continue. Now, Randy Credico, for mayor of New York, has a policy to tax Wall Street transactions, a sales tax for Wall Street on corporations and businesses that pay no fucking taxes at all. They pay nothing. They pay nothing. And he wants to tax Wall Street transactions at 0.5% for the city and use it to provide free transportation within the city so that people can ride the subways, buses, etc. for free and make Wall Street pay, because they have lived off the back of everybody in this fucking country long enough. And yet, he's not in debates, he's not talked about in the news, he's completely relegated to the side stream because no one wants to talk about the elephant in the room. Income inequality in this country, and the fact that Wall Street is a giant fucking seething nest of fucking leeches who will leech every drop of blood out of everybody in this motherfucking country and every fucking cent that they possibly can until the whole thing falls down into a big black hole of misery. And he's the only one that is attempting to address that issue. And that's why he is not talked about at all. So if any of my listeners, any of my watchers of my videos are in New York City, and you have not signed on to get him on the ballot for the general election for the Tax Wall Street Party, or you want to help him in his mayoral candidacy, I suggest that you get on the ball right now and help him, because he represents a sea change, a sea change. Now, we do see some things that are happening that are good, but there are also some very ominous signs coming down to us. Now, just look at Mitch McConnell, who is a right-wing fucking troll of death, who doesn't give a shit whether 9 billion people die in fiery death as long as his corporation buddies are all taken care of and the rich continue to reap in their massive fucking profits on the back of everybody in the entire world. He is being challenged by an even further right-wing radical who would make Tea Party people look liberal, okay? And he's actually struggling against this guy. That's not good, because what it means is there's going to be even more extremist elements within Congress. And if you thought nothing was getting done now except for all of the evil things that Obama is just as much behind as any of these whack jobs on the fucking right are, then that's what's going to be happening down the road. So we're going to look at bigger battles coming. The good thing about this is it may eventually split the Republican Party. It may eventually force them to oust these really far-right fascist motherfuckers and have a more moderate wing of the GOP, supposedly, which will merely be light fascism. Okay, and that will ultimately be beneficial in the long run when it comes to the political situation in this country. Now, this in no way is a defense of anything that Democrats do, because Democrats do absolutely nothing. All the people in power in Washington, D.C. who are Democrats, they support the NSA spying, they support every motherfucking shithole law that has come down the fucking pike, and they refuse to stand up for working people. They are complete sellouts, useless pieces of fucking garbage, okay? So this is no defense of any political party. The only thing I'm saying right now is that where there are opportunities to elect people, even if it's just for a mayor somewhere, we should be taking these and running with them in the hopes that we can make some kind of statement and get someone into office who's actually going to fight for legitimate, real things. So if you're in New York, get on the Randy Credico train. And beware for the upcoming elections in general, because we're looking at the possibility of even more radical people entering into Congress. And considering the situation the way it is now, it doesn't look very good. And of course, Egypt. Again, Obama sitting on his hands, refusing to do the right thing by recognizing the opposition to the Muslim Brotherhood and the actual sort of Nasserist approach being talked about by General Sisi and presumably others within the military who want to focus on Egypt and get Egypt back on its feet and have Egypt be a strong country within its own region and not be involved in all of the shenanigans and fucking backdoor fucking bullshit and terrorist garbage that USA Incorporated is trying to impose on them. And the only thing I can say is that I hope the best for Egypt, and I hope they come out of this with some kind of Nasserist leader who's going to actually focus on Egypt and the people there, rather than kowtowing to the World Bank and USA Incorporated. And I think it's a real travesty that after all of this has happened, the administration in this fucking corporate country has decided to let them just blow in the wind. And I guess I should be happy that we're not going in there with tanks and bombs and planes and everything else, and I am very happy that we're not doing that right now, but I don't see a really good outcome unless things are resolved pretty quickly, because it could descend into civil war over there, and that would never be a good thing. So those are my thoughts for today. Thanks you once again for tuning in to the Stench of Truth, and I'll see you next time.